If 40% of today's jobs disappeared tomorrow, would the world really be any different? This isn't just a thought experiment. It's a real question posed by the late anthropologist David Graeber, and it gets to the heart of a secret anxiety haunting the modern workplace. It's a question that might explain why you feel so drained, so disconnected, so fundamentally tired of your job. If you've ever sat at your desk staring at a spreadsheet or an email chain and felt a creeping sense of absurdity, a quiet voice in your head asking, "What is the point of any of this?" You are not alone. And more importantly, it's not your fault. You're not lazy. You're not entitled. You're just allergic to bullshit. For years, we've been told that Gen Z is the problem generation at work, job hopping, quiet quitting, and burning out at record rates. But what if they aren't the problem? What if they're the first generation to correctly diagnose the disease? Today on Gen Shift, we're exploring the rise of bullshit jobs, roles that exist without purpose, and revealing how Gen Z's supposed hatred of work is actually a profound and necessary critique of a broken system. So if you're ready to understand the real reason you feel so disengaged, make sure you're subscribed to Gen Shift and let's decode this crisis of meaning. One, the anatomy of a Bullsh job, defining the meaningless. The idea of the bullshit job exploded into public consciousness in 2013 when David Graeber published a provocative essay that went viral. He later expanded it into a book, defining a bullshit job as a form of paid employment that is so completely pointless, unnecessary, or pernicious that even the employee cannot justify its existence. This isn't just about having a bad day or a boring task. It's about the deep spiritual damage that comes from being forced to pretend your work matters when you know deep down that it doesn't. Graeber called this a profound psychological violence, a scar across our collective soul, because humans have an innate need to feel that their actions have a tangible, positive effect on the world. When that need is denied day after day, it creates a state of cognitive dissonance that is uniquely exhausting. To give this phenomenon a language, Graeber identified 5 main archetypes of meaningless work. As we explore them, you might find some of them uncomfortably familiar. First, there are the flunkies. These are jobs that exist primarily to make someone else look or feel important. Think of a receptionist at a company with no visitors, hired simply so the executive can say they have a receptionist. Or imagine a junior associate, bright-eyed and full of ambition, whose primary role becomes printing out 50-page reports, triple-checking that the staple is perfectly aligned in the top left corner, and hand-delivering them to a manager who glances at the cover before adding it to a stack of identical, unread reports. The psychological harm here is a feeling of subservience and utter uselessness. Your existence is tied to someone else's ego, not to any real function. Then we have the goons. These are roles that have an aggressive or deceptive element, jobs that exist only because other people employ them. This category includes corporate lobbyists, aggressive telemarketers, and public relations specialists hired to make a destructive company look good. The harm here is morale. You spend your days knowing your work might be making the world a slightly worse, more manipulative, or more annoying place, creating a constant low-grade conflict with your own conscience. The third category is duct tapers. These are the problem solvers whose entire job is to fix glitches that should never have happened in the first place. This is the customer service representative who spends their entire day apologizing for and reprocessing orders that are consistently wrong because of a buggy, outdated e-commerce system the company won't invest in fixing, or the programmer endlessly patching shoddy code written years ago. The psychological toll is one of immense frustration and futility. You exist because the organization would rather pay for a bandage than heal the underlying wound, a constant reminder of systemic incompetence. Fourth, we have the box tickers. These are employees who perform tasks that allow an organization to claim it's doing something that in reality, it is not. This is the person who generates beautifully formatted weekly reports that no one reads, administers employee satisfaction surveys whose results are never acted upon, or runs a corporate social media account that just reposts generic platitudes. It's the performance of productivity without any actual substance. The harm is a sense of institutional dishonesty of being a paid actor in a corporate play that has no audience and no impact. Finally, there are the taskmasters. This category has two flavors: those who assign pointless work to others and those who supervise people who don't need supervising. This is the middle manager whose main function is to schedule daily check-in meetings where team members simply report the status of tasks already tracked on a shared project management board. They don't just have a bullshit job, they create bullshit for others, generating a cascade of meaninglessness and resentment throughout the organization. While subsequent research has questioned Graeber's estimate that up to 50% of jobs are bullshit, the number of people who feel their jobs are useless is closer to 20%. His theory's power was never in its precise numbers. Its genius was in giving a name and a framework to a widespread soul-crushing feeling. He diagnosed the illness, and Generation Z is now living with the symptoms. 2. The data behind the disconnect, a generation's search for purpose. This isn't just a philosophical problem, it's a measurable crisis, and the data paints a stark picture of a generation on the brink. According to Gallup, employee engagement in the US has plummeted to an 11-year low, with only about 30% of workers feeling genuinely connected to their jobs. This decline is being driven almost entirely by workers under the age of 35. For Gen Z specifically, engagement scores are the lowest of any generation, dropping a staggering 5 points in a single year. The specific areas of decline tell the whole story. They feel less connected to their company's mission, see fewer opportunities to learn and grow, and are less likely to believe their opinions count. This is the statistical footprint of a generation being handed bullshit jobs and refusing to pretend they enjoy them. This crisis of meaning directly fuels an epidemic of burnout. A recent survey found that a staggering 83% of Gen Z frontline workers report feeling burned out. But the most shocking statistic is this: the average age for peak burnout in the American workforce used to be 42. For Gen Z and millennials, it's now just 25. They're hitting a psychological wall almost 2 decades earlier than previous generations. This isn't because they're less resilient. It's because the work they're being asked to do is psychologically corrosive. Spending 40 hours a week performing tasks you know are pointless is a unique form of exhaustion that depletes your cognitive and emotional reserves. It creates a vicious cycle. The meaningless work drains your energy, leading to burnout, which in turn makes it impossible to find any meaning, deepening the despair. This explains why a 2024 survey found that 75% of Gen Z workers have left a job for mental health reasons. They are not just quitting jobs, they are fleeing environments that are fundamentally unsustainable for the human spirit. In response, Gen Z is pioneering a radical shift in what work is for. For them, purpose is the new currency. Deloitte's 2024 global survey revealed that nearly 90% of Gen Z workers say having a sense of purpose is essential to their job satisfaction and well-being, and they are voting with their feet. Half of them have rejected a work assignment, and 44% have rejected an employer entirely because it didn't align with their personal values. The reasons they cite are a direct indictment of corporate indifference, negative environmental impact, non-inclusive practices, and a lack of support for mental well-being. This demand for purpose is coupled with a fundamental redefinition of success. For Gen Z, work-life balance is the single most important factor when choosing a job, outranking salary and other traditional benefits. Nearly 60% would rather have more vacation time than a pay raise. They are embracing a philosophy of career minimalism, where a job is what funds your life, not what consumes it. This isn't entitlement. This is a generation that has looked at the old deal, trade your youth and your soul for a stable paycheck, and has decided it's a scam. They understand that their time is their most valuable, non-renewable resource, and they are refusing to waste it on bullshit. 3. The Great Reorg, a blueprint for meaningful work. So what does the future of work look like in a world where the most valuable talent is allergic to bullshit? It looks like a great reorganization, a fundamental rethinking of how we work, from the individual level all the way up to corporate strategy. For individuals, this is a call to become an active architect of your own career, not just a passive participant. It starts with a personal values audit. Ask yourself, when have I felt most energized at work? Where do I feel I contribute the most? What problems in the world do I genuinely want to solve? Once you have that clarity, you can assess your current role not just by its title or salary, but by how well it aligns with your core principles. The next step is to become a bullshit auditor in your own job. You don't have to flip a table, but you can professionally question the necessity of recurring meetings. You can ask what the purpose of a repetitive report is and suggest a more efficient alternative. This isn't about being difficult. It's about being effective and advocating for your own sanity. And when looking for new opportunities, learn to look past the corporate mission statement on the wall and find companies that live their purpose. For companies and managers, the message is even more urgent: adapt or be left behind. The first step is to conduct a bullshit audit of your own organization. Systematically identify and eliminate the tasks, processes, and even entire roles that exist purely due to bureaucracy or inertia. A great historical example is General Electric's workout initiative in the 1980s. After discovering over a third of their labor was wasted on non-value-added tasks, they launched a massive project to empower employees to identify and eliminate useless work, transforming the company. Ask your teams today, what work do you do that, if it stopped tomorrow, would make no real difference? The answers will be terrifying and liberating. The future belongs to organizations that build a culture of purpose from the ground up. This means empowering employees with autonomy, giving them a clear line of sight from their daily tasks to the company's overall impact, and fostering a culture of transparency where pointless work can be challenged and eliminated without fear. The prediction is clear. Companies that cling to old models of top-down control and bureaucratic bloat will face a catastrophic talent drain. But those that embrace this shift, that eliminate meaningless work and empower their people to contribute in meaningful ways, will become the most sought-after destinations for the next generation of leaders. This isn't a zero-sum game, it's a win-win. Companies get a hyper-engaged, innovative, and motivated workforce, and employees get what they've been searching for all along, a career that doesn't just pay the bills, but also feeds the soul. Conclusion. The narrative that Gen Z hates work is one of the most profound misunderstandings of our time. They don't hate work, they hate wasting their lives. Their quiet quitting, their job hopping, their burnout, these are not signs of a failed generation. They are the symptoms of a failed system of work. This isn't a conflict between generations, it's an invitation to evolve. Gen Z is holding up a mirror to the modern workplace and asking a question that we should have asked decades ago. What are we actually working for? For them, finding purpose is not a luxury, it's a necessity, and in the economy of the future, meaning will be the most valuable currency of all. What are your experiences with bullshit jobs? Share your story in the comments below. Let's continue this conversation, and for more deep dives into the future of work and the human psyche, make sure to subscribe to GenShift.